So over $80 trillion will transfer in the United States in the next 2 decades. Yet 90% of those families will lose their wealth by the 3rd generation. So the real question is, it's not how much wealth you've built, but how we transfer the wealth to the next generation. Once again, my name is Bibi Ofiri. I teach people how to be financially free with multifamily. There are some things in life that we do, not because we need to, but because the next generation need to see them. And that's also how I think about generational wealth. So I'm going to start this with a personal story. The lesson I learned about taking my kids to church. So every Sunday I attend the online church, actually 2, one in the night and one in the morning. And that's on top of my daily routine when I have to do my devotion and I have sometimes strengthened my faith. If I may be honest, there's sometimes I don't feel like going to church. And that's maybe because I'm tired or I feel that I've already attended online service, my cup is already full, I've done my devotion, everything is fine. Technically, that seems to be enough. But wait a minute, that would have been if it was only me. But then something just reminds me that this life is not just about only me. If it was just about only me, everything will be easy. Because I have 2 daughters watching me. Whether I like it or not, they are learning from what I do, not what I say. So even in days when I could literally skip church, I still have to go. Not necessarily because I think I need it in that moment, but because I carry a responsibility. Because I also know that faith is something that does not naturally pass through DNA. If it was, we'll all do it, right? It requires exposure, it requires the right environment, and it requires consistency. And that realization helped me see things differently in life, that it's not just about me, but I owe it to 2 girls. And that's including wealth, not just faith. Because the same way faith needs to be intentionally transferred to the next generation. For those of you that do not know, my dad was a bishop. Yeah, so if they didn't do the right thing to transfer that to me, I'm not sure I'll be here serving God. No, I wouldn't do that. Because I know that it's intention. I remember then when my mom most especially used to call us and we do memory verses. We're so upset, we'll be angry, we'll be like, what's this woman doing? But guess what? Those memory verses, should I say we crammed? Yes. We crammed those days. Those are the memory verses, or those are the verses that I still use in my prayers and I still use to remind God. And those are the things that keep me going. And that's the same way faith is being transferred from one generation to another. And that is the same mindset I have about wealth. It needs to be transferred intentionally. We are currently living through what the economists call the largest transfer of wealth in history. And you know why? I did a video about this. Most of the wealth are with the baby boomers, and those wealth will be transferred to the Gen Zs or to the millennials, depending. Like I said in my previous video, when I talked about wealth, I spoke about the different generation. When I talked about the baby boomers, the millennials, the Gen X and all that. When I was talking, I did not say that the baby boomers are the richest. No, that was not what I said. I said the most unique thing that they had was time. They had time to build wealth. So some of them took advantage of it, and that's why we have some of them making, or some of them have made so much money. And because they're about making some money, we see that in a matter of few years, those wealth will be transferred to the next generation. And based on economics, it's going to be the largest transfer of wealth in history. That means some people are going to inherit wealth. But wait, before you start getting all excited, or any of you that are in those lineage, or you're a granddaughter or grandson to a baby boomer that is wealthy, because we found out that those wealth that they've suffered for do not last long. According to research from Cellular Associates, more than $80 trillion is expected to transfer from baby boomers to younger generation by 2045 in the United States alone. This wealth is going to move through real estate, businesses, retirement accounts, investment portfolios. This is how this wealth will be transferred. However, history shows something very important. Research from the Williams Group Wealth Consultancy also shows that 70% of wealthy families lose their wealth in the 2nd generation. That's really sad. Whereas 90% lose it by the 3rd generation. And that's the truth, because I don't know if you guys have seen this video that I did when I said my dad had about 4 houses in the US, and right now the value of those houses are in their millions. So it meant that if we still had those houses and we needed to sell, it would have been me coming down here and starting up as a millionaire and building up that wealth, right? He had done all that, made the sacrifices, started out wealth, and unfortunately he passed on, he died. There was no plan, a perfect way to have transferred those wealth to us. But do you know what happened? In few years, everything was lost. So instead of us starting from the $1 million level, we had to start from scratch. When I mean scratch, the scratch I'm talking about is from having 4 homes to becoming homeless for 2 years.
What?
That's how bad it was. And that is what this research from the Williams Group also said, that those wealth, yes, wealth is going to come, but in the second or in the third generation, literally almost everything will be lost. And I encountered it. What we are doing currently now is starting afresh and building up the wealth. But it would have been a lot better, if we had to have started from millions. We would have just been compounding those millions. But unfortunately, that did not happen. And that is the same similar cases that some other families are going through. This is summarized by saying shirt leaves to shirt leaves in 3 generations. For those of you that do not understand what that means, it means that generation 1 builds the wealth, generation 2 maintains it, and unfortunately, generation 3 loses it. It's not funny, guys, but this is real. This is something that happens, literally. So the issue is literally not the money itself. It's not. But the issue is the lack of intentional transfer of knowledge. Hear what I said. I did not say money. No. The issue is the lack of intentional transfer of knowledge and systems, not money. So one of the best ways of transferring wealth is through income-producing assets rather than cash. Assets such as real estate, businesses, equity investment, private investment, all these are income-producing assets. According to the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finance, real estate represents about 32 to 35% of total household wealth here in the US, making it one of the largest wealth building assets in the US. Historically, we've seen US appreciate between 3 to 5% on the average annually. And that is if you decide to disregard when we had COVID, where properties were appreciating like God knows, 15%, 20%, 10%, a lot of percentage. So take that aside, the normal average appreciation between 3 to 5% on the average annually. And the beautiful part of it is, while it's appreciating, it's also generating rental income. That means an asset purchased today can continue producing value in multiple generations. That is why many wealthy families prioritize owning assets that would outlive them. There are various ways to start creating generational wealth. And one of the most powerful but sometimes overlooked tools that you can use to transfer wealth to your next generation is a step-up in basis. I know for some of you, this is the first time you're hearing this, but let me explain this. The step-up basis is when someone inherits an asset such as real estate or stock. The tax basis resets to the market value at the time of the inheritance. So let me give you an example. When a parent buys a property, let's say for $200,000, and over the years it appreciated to $1 million. If they sell it during their lifetime, they will have something called the capital gain on the $800. It has appreciated by $800. But if the property is inherited by their children, that is maybe they pass on and they give it to their children, the kids might end up not paying little or no capital gain taxes if they sell shortly after inheriting the wealth. That is if they sell shortly after. Yes, but if they leave it to keep appreciating, then that's a different conversation. So the idea is the parents pass the inheritance to the kids after they're gone, and shortly after, maybe within that same year, the kids sell and they pay little or no capital gain. That is how they now get almost the entire wealth, or the entire wealth transferred to them without having any tax liabilities attached to it. This is one of the reasons why some families hold appreciating assets for a long time. Another one is the estate planning, and it's funny that some people are not even aware of this. But it's important that you understand the importance of wealth planning, because that is how some people lose their wealth if they do not have estate planning.
Oh, wow.
Some people wait until maybe they are very old or they're about to die before they start creating their will or trust. But the funny thing is that death does not tell when it's coming. So wouldn't it be appropriate for everyone to start planning their life, regardless of when they will depart? There are some ways that people lose their wealth without estate planning. One of them is through probate, taxes, legal disputes, maybe among families. You hear that, you see that is real, and poor management. So some of the most common tools that you can use for estate planning is one, the will. It's a legal asset that outlines how assets should be distributed. And there's another one called trust. Some people mistake will for trust. They are not the same, but trust is more comprehensive. It's like encompassing. In your trust, you also have the will inside. So I would rather say you should use trust rather than just the will, because will just tell you how it should be distributed, whereas trust allows assets to be passed through their heirs while controlling how and when they are assessed. So you can literally say, okay, my son or my daughter should not assess access this loan until his marriage, you can do that, or until they go to university, or until they achieve a milestone, or they get this every year. However you want it, that's what trust will do. And trust can help you avoid probate. It will help protect those assets, and it will maintain long-term family control of investments. Another estate planning too is the beneficiary designations. Those are like retirement accounts, insurance policies. They are often passed through named beneficiaries. That one is easy. I know most of us already do that, but that's another tool that you can use for your estate planning. People just create them and they forget to keep it updated. So yes, you've created it years back. As often as possible, ensure that you update it. That's very critical, because it's possible that 10 years ago you were not as wealthy as now, or maybe things have changed. Maybe you gave birth to another child in between the 10 years and you did that for just 2 children. You have 3. You need to go back and update it so that the last child will not be left out. You don't want issues when you're long gone among your kids. Now that we've been able to go through some tools that can help you transfer generational wealth, that's not enough. There's one very critical thing that we forget to do, not just for us to transfer. Now, we've been able to identify that there's going to be wealth transferred. We've been able to identify that there are some tools that you can use to transfer it. Now, that's not the most important thing. How is the wealth that you've suffered for many years? I know how hard some of us work. I know some parents will be in their grave crying and saying, all the hard work I've put into this, see what my grandchildren did to them. No one wants to be in those shoes. You don't want all your hard-earned income, all your hard-earned effort, sweat, blood, money and sweat. You don't want them to go down the drain. This is the most important thing for you to do to ensure that generational wealth keeps going on. And you must ensure that your child, your kid, your heir transfers this to the next heir as well. It's very important. So you might remember that I said the research from the William Group Consultancy found out that 60% of generational wealth failures are due to lack of communication and financial education within families. That means the biggest risk to wealth transfer is not the economy. No, it's not. It is an unprepared heir.
Here I come.
Before a king is made in UK or countries that they have kings and queens, they start to nurture them from when they are kids or babies. They teach them how to eat, sleep, walk, talk. Everything, it starts from a very young age. And they keep living that life until they become the crown king. And that same thing that is expected of every parent or every parent that wants to transfer wealth to their children should start doing. To be intentional about it and provide the right financial education and communication, especially from a very early stage of their life. Have you ever wondered why families that sustain wealth actually normalize financial education? Or they make it look like it's a way of life. For example, I want to see what the property managers are doing, if they've collected rent. These are casual conversations in the house. Cash flow. My kids know what cash flow is. They know what income is. These are normal terms. But in some homes, you don't even get to hear all that. These are gradual, unintentional. For me, it's intentional, but for them, unintentional education that they're getting. And it's just a way of life. And subconsciously, you are molding them to be aware of how to generate wealth and how to keep it or maintain it. They teach children how investments work, how assets generate income. So I bought this book from Rebecca Yosoke. I bought this kids cash flow book. There's this cartoon version of it, not the adult version. There's a cartoon version that I bought for my daughter. And in it, they broke it down to the simplest way. So I will encourage you, if you have little kids and you're into real estate and you want them to understand the basic, what you can start doing is get that book for them. And those little terms, they make it in a cartoon form, animation and all that, and it's easy for them to like it. So you might need to start in that way if you're investing in things like real estate or multifamily. Another one is how to evaluate risk and how to make long-term decisions. They don't just pass money down, no.
Sensational.
They've passed down financial intelligence because exposure changes mindset. When you expose them to something like that, it changes their mindset for them unconsciously, but you that you're doing it, you know it's a conscious effort. So another powerful tool is exposure. Children who grow up around investment, businesses, and real estate develop a completely different relationship with money. That's the truth. Not all though, but most. Because instead of seeing money as something mysterious or something I must have in cash, They see it as something that can be built intentionally. And that's why some families involve the next generation very early. They do these family investment discussions, they have it. They take business decisions, asset management decisions. The goal is not just inheritance, the goal is continuality or continuation. So what is the responsibility of this current generation, that is you and I? What's our responsibility towards transferring wealth to our kids? Because generational wealth requires leadership from this current generation. And yes, I'm talking to you. Don't look elsewhere, you. I'm talking to you. It requires leadership from you. It requires the understanding that our role is not only to provide, but also to prepare them for what is ahead. Our role is to prepare the next generation on how to handle responsibilities, prepare them to manage assets, prepare them to understand the values that build the wealth in the first instance, not just the money. How did the money come about? So my kids know that the money comes from when the tenants pay rent. That's how we get the money. They know. Because wealth without value can destroy families faster than poverty. And that's the truth. I know you've seen some families that are the so-called millionaire, billionaire and all that. Go and look at their kids. Some of them, you'll be like, what happened? So yes, sometimes it gets to a point that wealth now becomes a curse. You definitely don't want to get there. No one wants to end up or wants their next generation to end up like that. No. So the work starts now. I'll wrap up by saying this. The same way I think about wealth is the same way I think about taking my kids to church. Just like I told you guys at the beginning. Some things are not about what benefits us today. Some things about what benefits us tomorrow. Because legacy is simply not what we leave behind. Because some of us have assumed that that is what it is. What you leave behind. No. But legacy is what continues because we lived. Let that sink. And that is why I believe strongly in income producing assets such as multifamily investing. Because when structured well, this wealth don't just create wealth for today. They create system that keeps working for decades through cash flow, appreciation, tax advantages like step-up in basis, and so on. But assets alone are not enough because true generational wealth happens when we transfer knowledge, discipline, values that build those assets in the first place. Because the greatest inheritance we can give to our children or our heirs is not just money, it is a better starting point. And that was what I didn't have. And that's why we all should be intentional about how we make generational wealth, but most importantly, who we are transferring it to, how they keep it. I hope this was valuable to you. If you've not subscribed to our underwriting mastery class, whether you're a limited partner or a general partner, it's important for you to understand what you're investing in. And the background or the entire investment is based on, first of all, the underwriting. What are the numbers? How was it purchased? The entire process of the acquisition. Because the entire process of an acquisition can really determine if a deal will fail or will succeed. Click on the link below for you to get started. See you on my next episode. Bye.